Welcome to Spider-Verse Minute, the tri-weekly podcast where we watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 1 minute at a time. I'm Sean Slater.
And I'm his sister Caroline.
And I am literally not their brother Tom.
And today we're watching minute 57, which opens with Gwen landing on a rooftop and ending a minute later with Kingpin's family driving away.
I have titled this minute, Miles Doesn't Know Comic-Con. Which I have questions about, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, because he reads comics.
Yeah, that's why I have a theory, but we'll get to that line.
Okay. The beginning of this minute shows the news clip that Miles sees when he's in the police cruiser with his dad.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Gwen seeing it in the morning. I'm assuming it's the same broadcast because both of those happen in the morning.
Yeah, right?
I was trying to see if you could see the cop car driving by because that'd be pretty awesome.
That'd be amazing, but I don't think that you shouldn't because she's in Times Square and they're in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they took the long way to get to school.
They took an entire, it takes me, okay.
Let's go to a different...
From Times Square to Brooklyn is almost an hour.
Yeah, well, his dad had a lot of lecturing to do.
Well, the reason I was looking, though, is because there's so much here where they're tying their stories together.
Yeah.
Like in the next part where she's at her locker and you see the scene where he's walking by trying to fix his pants.
Yeah, we talked about that one when we first saw it. And we're like, we kind of see it. Did we talk about it? I actually don't remember.
Yeah, when I don't remember if it's when he's fixing his pants, but there are scenes of him walking through school where she's at his locker.
Yeah, it is. I think the one they show is him struggling, it's like when he first thought he hit puberty.
Yeah.
Because his pants no longer fit, and it looks like he's trying to fix them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we were saying before, how does she get this uniform so fast?
Right?
There's two options. One is she snuck into the school and stole someone else's uniform from the locker room while they were someone in sports in the morning. She snagged it and came in, or she snagged one from a store. I don't think she would have been able to buy it because I don't think her money would be good here.
Right. And the whole, my spider sense led me to the school is really weird because he didn't have spider powers until right then.
Yeah.
And so it could be when he's sleeping, maybe when it sort of fully gives him the powers, maybe that sent off a shockwave, and she was trying to instead of being so I was following you for for this amount of time, and then suddenly I just showed up at the school. She probably shortened it to make herself seem a little bit less creepy.
Probably, yeah. Did you guys notice that? I never noticed this before, but she actually, when we see Miles bump into her, she actually makes herself bump into Miles.
Yeah, and they even pointed that out in the director's commentary. I think it was the director's and animator's commentary. They were like, "Oh yeah, if you notice."
Yeah, I never noticed that until now. I'm like, she did that on purpose.
Yeah, although I don't think it went nearly as she had planned because
no,
I don't imagine she was planning on having him get his hand stuck in her hair. And
so she had to also sneak in and find out what his schedule was.
Right?
So that she could get into his physics class.
I feel like Gwen did a lot of snooping before.
Yeah.
I think what she did, this is my theory now, is she snuck into school. Something told her to go to Brooklyn Academy for some reason. She gets there and she sneaks into the attendance office or whatever, finds out a student who is either on vacation or absent or dropped out or something, took their uniform and grabbed the schedule that way.
She could have pulled it from one of the dorms.
Yep.
That they stay in. That's
right.
But
they figured out which dorm they are, that, and it just happened to be the same size.
Yeah. They probably also have a lost and found or something for kids who come in with inappropriate clothing.
Probably backup uniforms for you can't be wearing that. Change. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or, and this is the very dark theory, She
Oh,
kidnapped
no.
somebody. Forced them to give it. Because she's also got like a locker. Like, did she just
Yeah, that's
break
why
open
I'm
that
thinking
locker?
she broke into the school and got all that information.
She had to. First of all, she had to know it was Miles, so she knew whose record to go look up to find their schedule,
Yeah.
and then go get in his class so that she could laugh as a joke.
And like talking to the teacher, being like, "I'm a new student," and like, is the teacher just okay with that, or
Did she assume someone's identity? I think she assumed someone's identity.
yeah,
What? I bet it was Wanda.
Yeah.
Wanda.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
she was like, "Oh wait, no, I can't say Gwen. My real name's Wanda."
It's
'Cause-
Why can't she say Gwen? This has bothered me since I watched the movie the first time. Why is she hesitant in saying Gwen?
My guess could be that she doesn't want to accidentally like find someone who knows the Gwen of this world, and so she's like, "Oh, I don't want to
Maybe,
be
yeah.
I don't want to be known as Gwen," or maybe she's just so used to like a secret identity that she's like,
Well, she's not that used to it with how she covers it up.
"Yeah, that's
Fair.
true."
But if we're going with this theory that she took someone's identity, it would make a lot more sense. I think we're getting proof here.
Yeah, I think there's a Wanda locked up in a closet somewhere.
I don't know, not that theory. Not that one, no.
Because is she at the school for multiple days,
She has to be, at least for
or is it just the one day, and then
well, because so she meets Miles before he gets beaten. Yeah, because she meets Miles before he gets bitten. They do the hay after he gets bitten, and that was an overnight thing.
yeah, that's true. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Is like, so her spider sense sent her there before he was even bitten.
Yeah.
So it could be they kind of in the Spider-Verse comic crossover, which I
Mhm.
forgot to mention last minute when we were talking about Gwen, or at the beginning of the week when we were talking about her origin. She was created for the Spider-Verse crossover storyline as just like one of the spiders they met.
Mhm.
But I think in that story they kind of talked about there was a lot of like fate and destiny of like the spider people kind of always meeting each other, and like a lot of it's, you know, most of the time Peter gets bitten, and or it always seems to be these people in like close proximity to Peter / Gwen. So maybe it was like she was drawn there because of the like by fate, pretty much. Like fate knew,
Okay.
and her spider powers knew that Miles was potentially going to be the like maybe he's always the spider person that becomes the Spider Man when Spider-Man dies, and so it's just like, well, okay, here's the next one,
Right.
Okay.
maybe.
or
Or
I mean, I'll take it.
or we could give the very, you know, much simpler explanation of they were moving like dates and times around so much in this they didn't know when Miles was necessarily going to be bit, so maybe she showed up there when they originally had her showing up. It was when he was after he was bit, and then they
Yeah.
just didn't fix that.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
And then yeah, she bumps into him, and then like the flashback just ends. Like
Yeah,
it's
I love the transition.
it's a good transition into current Miles. Which when did he take his mask off? And when did they get down from the tree?
It was
yeah,
while she was telling the story,
Right?
I guess.
yeah.
So, like, is she telling the story and they're struggling to get down? Is she helping them? Like, I have a few questions there, but not as important.
I like to think she just jumped down and waited for them to get down themselves.
I like to picture her just kind of cutting them down and hoping the best.
Yeah, they just fall on the ground.
Personally. There's snow, they're fine.
Yeah.
I like how it's this close up, and Miles is like, I like your haircut.
You don't get to like my hair.
You get to like my haircut. Okay.
Yeah, I like that's one of those other neat things that they connect is like the story of her hair is sort of the story of their friendship, where you know, he gets off to a bad start because he tears out some of her hair, and then here he's like, hey, I want to be your friend, I like your haircut, but she's like, nope, not yet, I still don't like you. And then at the end of the movie he's like, you're allowed to like my haircut now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like, can I
they're
like
friends.
your haircut?
And you can like me too.
I just love the way she delivers that line too. It's like, you're not allowed to like my haircut.
Yeah.
Very funny. It's like, oh, that was
And then
very
she
aggressive.
immediately just like leaves. She's like, you don't get to like it. Let's go. Come on.
I love how Miles is so dumbfounded he doesn't leave and then gets webbed.
Yeah. And he's just like, how many spider people are there? And I love Peter's response of, save it for Comic-Con. Which is an underlooked response, to be honest.
Yeah.
Who webbed him?
I think it was Peter.
How did Peter web him when he's only got one web shooter?
Do you think he gave it back?
Oh, that's right. Maybe Peter did like a 360 no scope, webbed him, pulled him up. Like, just was flying through the air and pulled him up. Or Gwen was just irritated, like swung back around, came back and picked him up. Was like, come on, do I have to do everything for this kid?
Apparently.
That's true, because they are both off screen when he gets webbed.
Peter could have stopped on a tree and webbed him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so this brings up the line that I mentioned earlier. So, Miles doesn't know what Comic-Con is.
So maybe they just don't have it in his
Yes.
universe.
I'm thinking either this universe does not have Comic-Con, or Miles is so in the dark and, like, ashamed of his comics that
Yeah.
he just does not leave that world much into the nerd world and doesn't realize that Comic-Con's a thing.
I think that he probably don't have Comic-Con in his
I
world.
think
Yeah.
that's more likely, to be honest. Though I do find it funny how he would be like, oh yeah, I'm into comics, but, like, maybe he's still really new to it, and he's like, I'm sorry, there's like a what now?
Yeah. That would be, like, interesting to see, like, what their media landscape is like without, like, Comic-Con, and the influence it's had on just, like, how media is consumed and, like, delivered to people. Maybe they just don't have, like, they haven't had any big but like, the early 2000s superhero renaissance, kickoff to the renaissance.
Maybe. Or they have Comic-Con, or like what we would consider Comic-Con, but they don't call it Comic-Con.
Oh, yeah. A neat little art thing they did as they're leaving the scene. The lasers cause the leaves to move, and it's the only time the leaves move on the trees through this whole sequence.
Yeah.
One of the things they were talking about was, like, at some point someone was like, hey, should the leaves just, like, rustle in the wind kind of thing? Like, you just normally have them move around? Like, nah, we'll just keep them still. It's a lot easier that way. And they're like,
The bad guys can destroy the piece of the forest.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll do
then-
one scene where they wrestle.
Here it rustles a bit. It really took them some time to catch up to the people with lasers to catch up to them.
Well, they were walking,
Yeah.
so
And Peter did like web quite a few of them.
Do you think some of them stopped to get down Doc Ock, or
yeah, some of them are still back there
Oh.
doing that.
You know what? I bet some of them did.
Get a ladder.
yeah, or like
How do we do? Should we just shoot them? Like, what do we do?
shoot the webs without shooting her?
It's like, no.
Yeah,
And then we transition.
We get the
Yes.
smash cut to Kingpin, no music,
Right.
yeah.
which terrifies me. Because all we hear is the clicking of his pen.
It's such a great just like way to show how intimidating. Like they do a good job of getting across his intimidation.
I also feel the need to point out that, like, this is one time that we see Kingpin in full screen.
That's true.
So one time he doesn't take up the entire screen.
Yeah. The pen clicking, and then as he's going through this, and you see the different pictures of him, it really, really brings out the fact that is he mutated? I mean, how does this happen
Right?
to
Like,
somebody?
he's so big.
He's not shaped right.
It's like, no one else is shaped like this. There's not
He's
even...
a ball with a head in the middle
Like,
of it.
not even his son is shaped like this. I'm like, oh, so it's
Yeah.
not genetic. Whatever it is.
What happened to him?
Maybe instead of like the like vat of chemicals that fell on like Matt Murdock, it fell on him and just made him really big instead of blinding him.
And round, and
Yeah.
brought his shoulders up over his head.
So this giant hunch, like, right? If
Yeah.
that man could put his head on top of his shoulders, oh, that's...
Could you please? Come on.
Yeah.
Some of the pictures, though, it's just like literally a circle
Yeah.
with a little head in the middle of it.
Just It's like, oh. And he's always wearing, like, it always feels like he's wearing dark color, so it's just like this head in this void.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like,
I will say they put him in some pretty silly clothes.
They
Yeah.
do put him in
Like
some,
some
very
really
goofy-
mundane clothes in these pictures.
which are very funny.
Like, look, I'm wearing a vest,
Yeah.
a sweater vest.
How did I get this on my body?
I'm normal, guys. I wear sweater vests just like you.
He's got to have a custom tailor because
Oh, yeah.
he's not buying these clothes anymore.
Right? How much do you think it costs for him to get a suit? Do you think
You
he's...
can't take it with you, you know.
Yeah.
Good point.
And like this whole flashback sequence does a really good job of like kind of humanizing him and
Mhm.
setting up his backstory in such a short period of time, in like a minute.
Not even a full minute.
Yeah.
His adolescent son is the size of his arm. I mean, I don't even want to think about the logistics when it comes to the.
Oh god. I'm like, family like, ooh, stop the thing.
I was gonna say, did he lie to his family this whole time? Is that what he was doing?
That's what it seems like.
That seems to be what's implied.
Or at least like he kind of tries to keep like maybe it's say like keep business out of the house, and he just he brought it into the house this one time, and so
Yeah.
that's just like it was after doing it a bunch of times. Maybe she's like, nope, that's it, this is the final straw. Or they thought he was just a businessman philanthropist.
He's enormous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They don't question that part. They go with it.
The man shaped like an egg.
I do love going a little more serious. I love the sort of like portrait filter effect that they do on the flashback.
Yeah,
Right.
It feels
Yeah,
kind
that's
of watercolor-ish
Yeah.
/ like nice
Streaking
crayons
paint.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like a mixture of like watercolor and pastels.
Yes. Yeah.
Nice crayons.
Nice like they're not just crayons, but they're fancy crayons. I don't know what those would be called. Maybe like colored pencil. I don't know. I don't do art.
It was just funny. Nice crayon. What?
Yeah.
Certain areas of it remind me of like the stuff that they do with it's gonna sound stupid, but with like coffee.
Yeah.
Oh,
Take
like the
the-
foam art.
Yeah, the foam art where they drag a toothpick through it to like smear it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does.
Because it's
kinda
got that
have
like sort of fuzzy edges and
Yeah.
Yeah.
nothing's super sharply defined.
Mhm. And it's such a cool like difference with the other flashbacks we've seen that are like in this comic book style and so much more like how we see them.
Yeah.
And then this is clearly like such a different flashback.
And one of the things they were joking about in the animators commentary was like they were looking at the like concept art for this, like, oh yeah, that looks really cool. It'd be really cool if the art was like that for the actual movie. And they're like, okay, yeah, I can't wait to see what they do. And they're like, oh, they just used the concept art. Like it's just the same. They just kept the style. Cool.
Oh, cool.
It's great when that works out. Where like they kind of know what they want it to be early on, and it stays pretty much the same throughout for this bit.
Yeah, I love things like that. And it's so effective too, because I feel like that sort of filter adds to the humanizing a bit.
Yeah, if it was in the same art style as the rest of the movie, it wouldn't have nearly the same effect as it does this
Or if
way.
it even was just like a fully animated almost montage of like him and his family, I don't think it would have worked.
And the other nice thing too with the way it's done is it's sort of like you're not, because it's so not concrete, it like is also like the way memories work, where it's not concrete and things kind of are fuzzy and you can't really see exactly what's going on, and so we don't really know, like, can you trust this flashback, or is it just the way he pictures it, and maybe like he did something else that like put his family in danger and that's why they really left.
Were there things he was leaving out?
Yeah.
It's definitely showing it through, well, kind of like rose-colored glasses. Like, he wants to remember only the good stuff.
Was there anything else that you guys wanted to bring up?
I think that's it for this.
That is all I had.
Then we'll touch on Kingpin's voice actor. We have heard him a bit before, but this is kind of where we thought it would be good to talk about him. His voice actor is Liev Schreiber, who started on stage in 1992 in the off-Broadway play Goodnight Desdemona, Good Morning Juliet, where he played Lionel, and then has done stage productions throughout his career since then. And his film debut was in Mixed Nuts as the character Chris in 1994. But those were some smaller roles he had until his breakout role in the Scream trilogy as Cotton Weary, starting in 1996. And then he went on to play Sabretooth in the X-Men Origins Wolverine movie, and has had a bunch of other bigger film roles such as Ransom, Phantoms, The Omen, and the one he got a lot of awards for was Spotlight in 2015, where he wore a bunch of Best Supporting Actor and outstanding cast stuff.
That was the newspaper one, right?
Spotlight was it was the Boston the sex abuse scandal that they wrote about in Boston.
That's right. I just wanted to make sure I was thinking of the right movie.
Yeah.
Who's in that? That's cool.
And then he's also done some other voiceover work in My Little Pony the movie.
He played the Storm King.
Boy, what a career. We're gonna go from Spotlight to My Little Pony.
Yeah. And then he was also in Isle of Dogs as well as
I wanted
this
to
movie.
see Isle of Dogs.
And he had his directorial debut with Everything is Illuminated in 2005. But yeah, he's been in some other smaller parts here and there. I've enjoyed him in the stuff I've seen him in.
Yeah,
I haven't seen him in a
nails
whole
it in
lot.
this. I feel like I say this with every voice actor we talk about, but he nails it in this movie.
Yeah, he does a really good Kingpin.
Intimidating, just knows how to send that shiver down your spine, and knows how to give a voice.
It makes me think of like what's his name? Tim Burton in Alice in Wonderland, the Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Oh, yeah.
He also reminds me of Tweedledee and Tweedledum in like comics. Which I guess makes sense because they're kind of based off of the same thing.
Yeah.
I will say this: if any other voice except his came out of Kingpin's, I don't know if that design would have worked.
I think the actor that plays Kingpin in the Daredevil TV show,
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah, he does a very good job of being a live action Kingpin. So I could easily take his voice and just slap him on this Kingpin, and it would probably work just about the same.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, but I think that might not only be because, but like be pretty much because that's like he's Kingpin, so just making him an animated Kingpin would work.
Would make sense, yeah.
You've already plugged into that working for you.
Yeah, like I haven't seen Daredevil, so like it might not work for something like me. It'll be like, no, I can't hear it. Like, who knows? Is that all you got for this minute?
Yeah, that was everything I had.
I think so.
All right. Thank you all for listening, and we will catch you next week with new episodes. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter at SpiderverseMin, M-I-N, or reach us at Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at SpiderverseMinute, or you can shoot us an email to podcast@spiderverseminute.com. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
And, well, wait. I don't know what to do. Thank you, Thomas, for joining us this week.
Oh.
No, it was my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me. It was an honor being your first guest.
Yes, you were an excellent first guest, and hopefully we can have you back on for a later minute.
That'd be cool.
Same. Thank you so much. It was so cool having you here.
Quite a pleasure.
Bye for real.